St.Hilaire, and this will have a large financial difference to many, is that then what should you do? Once you know what you are able to do, that doesn't necessarily mean that you are fully informed on what you should do. And so Maximize Your Medicare, the first book that I've written, is more of not about, it's not as focused on the actual rules, because the rules are actually in black and white. The more subtle, the more sensitive matters, however, are how you should think through it so that you can make the right choice for your house, for yourself, your family, the people that depend on you. And for those of you who support your mother, your grandparents, then this becomes a valuable resource because, like I said, what ends up happening is for those of us who are not Medicare eligible, we just look at the Medicare documents. We presume that deductible means the same thing.
And that's the truth.
And then our grandparent rely on us to help them make decisions. Well, now all of a sudden our starting point can be wrong.
Right. And not intentionally, because
no.
the terms you would think would be the same, but they're not.
Not questioning the intent
right.
of the person's trying to help. But that all said, the fact is that these rules are known if you don't presume that the meanings are exactly the same.
Right. So how do we get your book?
Well, Maximize Your Medicare is available pretty much everywhere. So the website for the book is maximizeyourmedicare.com. There is a free newsletter that comes out every Sunday night where I include little consumer tips, little aspects, short articles that have to deal with Medicare and short articles that have to deal with matters in personal finance. That is freely distributable, comes every night, every week on Sunday, just so that people can wind down with their weekend and then go into the next week. But MaximizeYourMedicare.com is the place for all of that. And there are all links to the official government website, how to file appeals, the whole thing.
Very good.
There.
Thank you for that. So what about, so that covers a person just turning 65. What about, what would be the best advice that you could give to a person that is well into receiving Medicare already and it's open enrollment now? What would be good advice for that person?
During the annual election period, which begins on October 15th and runs through December 7th, you can remember that I've described Medicare Advantage and as well, and I'll say the same thing about Part D, which is standalone prescription plans, is that they are annual contracts, meaning since they run January to January, we should presume that all of the moving parts can move, even if your medical situation stays this absolutely unchanged, that the coverage that you receive from year to year can be different. And since I've already described these two components, Part C, which is Medicare Advantage, and the standalone prescription plan as annual contracts, we should presume that the moving parts will change because, as I mentioned earlier, we have a number of sellers in every location.
Right.
And they're balancing a number of different other top matters, much like Ford and Toyota are when they're dealing with another competitor or a different model change, et cetera, et cetera. There are sellers competing not for your business, and they are trying to manage their own costs at the same time, and they go through this drill on an annual basis. So you as a consumers, I know it's comfortable to have the idea, well, I'm going to go on this plan and never change it. But practical reality is that it's very likely that in doing so, that you're probably doing so inefficiently.
So annually, you should sit down with somebody and go over this, preferably you.
Of course, preferably me. That goes without saying. That. But reality is that at this time of the year, you're going to get a letter, which is called an annual notice of change, ANOC. It is governed by it is required by the government, where they will tell you how you will, if you stay with your existing plan, what will change going into the next year. So while it does do that,
will we get that before open enrollment?
Yes.
Okay.
That's correct.
Okay.
So while it tells you that my plan is going to change and how it's going to change into next year, it doesn't make any comments about how the rest of the plans are going to change. Just yours. Because because the carriers aren't allowed to comment about the competitors. That is what makes this complicated, meaning that the rules governing marketing or advertising for Medicare Advantage plans or Part D plans is very strict. So they don't get to say my pickup truck is better than a Ram, Ford is, F-150 is better than a Ram, a Chevy, or a, Chrysler Ram truck. They don't get to do that.
They just say, you bought this Ram, this is how it's going to be different this year.
This is how it's going to be different this year.
Right. So again, that's why you need to come back like every year about this time, because it's overwhelming to know that every year you think you have a grasp on it, and then it's going to change. So I thank you so much for your expertise on this matter. It's very much appreciated. And if we want to get a hold of you, we can get a hold of you on your website.
There are a number of different ways, Deb. First of all, the firm's name is GH2Benefits.com. There are contact forms there. You can also go to MaximizeYourMedicare.com, which is my book. When you enroll in the newsletter, there's a place where you can ask for me to reach out, for us to reach out. We are very organized about the matter. We, reach out within 24 hours of somebody requesting it, at least to establish a point of contact. And then we don't charge for this consultation. Reality is that health insurance matters affect pretty much everyone at every economic and health class situation. It's far better for persons to have the accurate information up front. People ask me, for example, yesterday in Novi, someone asked, well, how do we get compensated? We get compensated by the carrier at a fixed number that we don't control. We don't control price. We don't control plan. And in many cases, actually, we don't get paid more for a bigger. If you pay more, that does not necessarily mean that we get paid more.
So you're actually looking out in the best interest of the person. You're picking out a plan that is going to work the best for them.
In addition, well, first of all, I guess one distinguishing feature of myself and ourselves is when I'm as a certified financial planner, and actually it is supposed to be the case that we are putting the client's best interest in front of ourselves. So then what ends up happening is, if we presume that everyone is doing that, then what you are doing is comparing who is the most qualified to be able to think through these different issues.
Very good. So you make appearances. Do you have any in Michigan coming up here pretty soon?
Coming up is next week. I'm at Lansing Community College. You can go. There's a Facebook page for Maximize Your Medicare. There are links there. I'll be appearing there. I want to call it on October 11th next. And in addition to that, I do appear at different businesses, their locations, for example, in Washtenaw County the following week after that, and then in Midland County the following week after that, where clients of mine who know that they're part of communities or groups of people that require this information, that could use this information, they invite me to their location, whether that be one of the locations, for example, in Midland, is going to be actually at a church. where they're going to have a late afternoon pizza party. And I'm going to stand up in front of them, and I'm happy to return there after a first visit last year, where the client knew that their friends, their fellow congregation members did need this information, asked whether I'd be willing to appear there. So that's going to be, for example, in Midland. So it is very important for all of us because I'm very certain, after speaking to thousands of people at this point, that we know someone in our mind who's supposed to have this information who, for whatever reason, doesn't. They don't like people like me. They don't trust insurance companies. They don't trust the government.
And you hear that all the time.
You hear that all the time. But the reality is the person who ends up paying the consequences, that person, if they become ill and they get blindsided. Right,
exactly. So, call Jay, find out more about him. There's a link to his website on w4divas.com. And as he has my personal recommendation because he's a good, honest person. And a lot of people don't trust insurance people. And I would trust Jay.
The last thing I would say is that, if I could, is that we know we have a skeptical society. That
for good reason.
that is the case. I do try to tell persons in public in every possible forum, it is unlikely that the carrier is misleading you intentionally. Extremely unlikely. Even though you're getting a lot of mail and advertisements about Part D or Medicare Advantage plans, there's small print at the bottom of these pages. It'll say something that says approved and a bunch of gobbledygook there. That's not approved internally. That's approved by the federal government.
Oh.
Every page, and not only the page, but the order of the pages.
Wow. So
fact,
it's very regulated.
Exactly. So the idea that the sellers, meaning the carriers, would put misinformation intentionally in there is the probability of that is zero.
Good. That's good to know. That's really good to know.
And like I said, I can totally understand a skeptical society, but to say that these advertisements are misleading or untruths, that is a fallacy. That's just simply not true. And all it does is it increases the skepticism so it becomes excessive. And now you don't trust anything or anyone or any words, whether you hear them or read them. You may think, well, I heard of this one wrong instance, or I heard of this one example. That may not be the full set of facts.
Right.
The idea that the advertisements you're seeing, and that includes the infomercials.
Right.
Those infomercials, those commercials that you see on TV, those are approved. The script is approved. This is not.
So it's very, very watched over and guarded to not be misleading.
Exactly. The weakness of that, of course, is that it can be vague. Right? Because, in other words, what ends up happening is that the person communicating to you doesn't want to be misconstrued as misleading.
So the vaguer they keep it, the better it is.
You can't say that I've misled you because
that's not what I meant.
Exactly. So it's kind of like when you ask your teenage child, "Where were you?"
I was with Johnny.
And then, well, they say, "I was out." Who were you with? And they say, "I was with people." Okay, yeah, that is correct. That's true, but that's not necessarily what you were asking.
Right.
That is different than being misled.
Right.
And it's important that we not try to take it to that degree.
Very good. So one more time, give us your website.
So the website for our practice is GH2Benefits.com. The website for the book is MaximizeYourMedicare.com.
Very good. Thanks, Jay. So if you have a parent or you yourself are going on Medicare, you should definitely check out those sites. We're going to hear from our sponsors, come back and tell you what's going on this week. Wendell's Home and Design, located at 5260 East Pickard Road in Mount Pleasant, Michigan. Their goal is to make
home decorating affordable. Please call 989